Crankshaft time. Crankshaft bearings and the bearing caps. So we're going to start putting the bearings in and check bearing nip. Installing the bearings in these motors is very straightforward. Clean the factory oil off them. There's a notch in the bearing that matches a notch in the block. Line those up, push the other side down, and they just clip in. You can't put them in the wrong place or the wrong way around. And our number 1 cap. Same with the bearing caps. You can't get this wrong. Number 3 cap is completely different. You can mix up number 1 and 2, but you know, they're numbered, and they can only go in the right way round. The bolts need to be torqued to 85 foot-pounds, and always tighten bolts gradually and evenly. I know that's basic information for a lot of you, but you know, I don't want anyone to break something. And so the idea here is that basically the bearing should be slightly larger than the hole. So in other words, it's being squeezed. And we check that by undoing one side. Let's go with this side. Okay. And now we should be able to slide in a 4/1000 thick feeler gauge, which I think is this one. It's hard to tell because my feeler gauges look like I keep them at the bottom of a fishing trawler. But anyway, 4/1000 goes in. It's supposed to be between 4 and 6, so let's check. Okay, 6 does not go in, 4 does. Perfect. I checked all 3 bearings because may as well, there are only 3 of them. But if you're in a hurry, you probably don't need to. We're really just checking for a mistake in the bearing manufacturing, and if you're using good bearings, that's unlikely. In the old days, when manufacturing was less precise, an engine builder would have to mix and match bearings to achieve the right amount of bearing nip, but that's pretty much a thing of the past. Now, bearing clearance, and this is a check that you do need to do, or the engine machinists can do it for you. Our crankshaft. Easy. And don't use your assembly lube yet. I did lightly wipe the bearings with WD-40 so they're not completely dry, but you don't want to use anything with any kind of thickness. Now we're going to check the clearances with Plastigauge. When you had your crankshaft polished or reground, the engine machinists would have been constantly checking it with a micrometer to make sure it stayed within spec. So using Plastigauge should be a double check. It just visually shows you the gap. And by Plastigauge I mean not real Plastigauge, Flexigauge. Anyway, our clearance is, what is that? 1/8 of a thousandth of an inch to 2.8 thousandths of an inch. So 1 to 3 basically. This packet of Plastigauge was left on the bench for about half an hour. And in that amount of time my daughter thought, wow, that looks like a pretty good headband. So it might be a little broken up. So basically that just gets squashed. Needs to be fully torqued again. I'm trying to do this without wobbling all over the place. You're welcome. And there it is. But we can now just line it up with whichever line is thicker. What do you reckon about that? I would say it's in here, closest to 0.002, 2/1000ths of an inch. So we're somewhere between 2 and 2.5 thousandths of an inch, and our limit is 2.8. So now I'm going to check the middle and the back bearing, and hopefully they are both fine. Yeah, so it's a little tighter than 2.5 thousandths. Maybe on the inside it's at 2.5. On this side it's at 2, definitely tighter than 3. Okay, so that's good. They're all within spec. And this can come back out because we have one more check to do. Now these are our thrust bearings. And these are available in Oversize as well, but these ones are standard. The thrust bearings or washers sit in these half circle recesses, one on each side of the center bearing, and only on the block side. They hold the crankshaft in position fore and aft, and we need to check the end float with them installed. Now I use a smear of grease to hold them in place. Make sure you squish all the grease out though, because they need to sit hard against the block so we don't get a false reading. And since we're going to be sliding the crankshaft around, I'll put some proper lube on the bearings. Crankshaft going back in. And what we need to check is how far it moves front to back. And we're going to do that with an indicator. Okay, that's as far back as it wants to go. So I'm about to bump it towards you guys. Okay. That's about where it stops. About 9. Just a smidge past 9. I haven't cheated. I have no idea what the book says. Let's have a look. End float. 2 to 6. Okay, so we're going to have to use oversized bearings to get our end float within spec. Currently we're at about 9 and we need to be under 6. The sizes you see here in the parts manual are per bearing, but you use them in pairs. So a pair of 2.5 thou oversized bearings is going to reduce our end float by 5 thou, which should be perfect. Alright, we have new thrust washers. And yes, they're Brit part, but I was very fortunate to get these. This pair is the only one in stock that I could find in New Zealand, and it happens to be the size we need. So let's put them in and see if that solves our problem. Crankshaft, try not to dislodge everything. So in theory, 9 minus 5 is 4. So let's see what we've got. So as far as it goes, what have we got? Oh yeah, right on 4. Perfect. Now let's see, for the sake of you guys who don't have an indicator, if we can get the same reading with a feeler gauge. So this is 5 thou. And it's sort of not really going in. 4. Yeah, okay. The indicator is nice because it shows you the actual movement. The feeler gauge, you're always a bit like, is that in properly? Is it getting snagged on something? But if the tolerance is 2 to 6 and you're measuring 4, I would think that's perfectly fine to do with a feeler gauge. And finally, before we install the crankshaft, make sure it's completely clean, especially the oil galleries that run diagonally through it. Now, as far as what we're going to use for oil or assembly lube when we put everything back together, I am using this stuff. I think most guys who put engines together use this Lucas oil stabilizer. Previously, I have just used engine oil, which I think is totally fine if you're going to run the motor straight away. I don't know what's happening with this engine, so I'm going to use this sticky stuff instead. For the camshaft, we'll use this Liqui-Moly assembly paste. We'll talk about that when we get to the camshaft. And it is horribly gloopy. Like honey. Probably don't eat it. And yeah, I normally wear gloves, but for this part, I'd like to feel if there's any grit. And you can't really do that through gloves. And same for the caps. And for now, we're just installing the front and the middle cap. Just tighten them down with your normal ratchet. We'll do the final torque later. I don't know why, but the service manual says to install the rear main seal before torquing the front 2 caps, so we'll do that. Yes, it's time for the dreaded rear main seal. Rear main seal. I think this is the most difficult part about rebuilding one of these engines. And the reason I say that is because you can follow the instructions and still do a really bad job of this, and it'll leak. Also, you can follow the instructions perfectly and it'll leak. This is a Pioneer Western rear main seal, and this is the OEM or genuine seal. Now you can of course buy the Britpart ones. That's what I've used in the past and they seem to work. But these aren't that expensive, and I was buying stuff from Turners who sell these ones, so that's what I got. Okay, so what we have here, the seal itself, this runs around the crankshaft. The T-seals, oh, the famous T-seals. We're not going to use these ones. Our gasket set will have more modern rubber ones in it. And then these two semicircular things, these seal the back face of the motor. As you can see, these are the original half circle seals. A lot of people reuse these. I've only ever replaced them, but we'll see how these ones go. Hint, I end up replacing them. And you'll need some kind of tool to install these. Now, the problem, you can probably see, is that there's no way to install this seal. It can't go through this bigger bit, and it certainly can't go this way, through all of this. So basically, Land Rover decided to cut it in half. So you'll see in a second that this opens up and splays out, and you squeeze it around the crankshaft and then kind of join it back together. It's a really good design. And look, before we all rip into Land Rover, because, yeah, this design is overly fiddly, just remember that in the 60s and the 70s, a lot of manufacturers were still using rope rear main seals. Step one, and this is pretty easy. We've got to get the spring out first. There we go. And you'll see there's a little tiny hook on the end, which we unhook somehow, like so. Okay, so I'm just going to hook a piece of copper wire through each end, and now I should be able to get it all the way around, which I can. Now the difficult part is to hook it back up without stretching the spring. I'm sorry, all you can see is hands, but I've got to get this carefully to hook in there. Oh. Yes! Yeah, that's super easy. So that's the part you do first. And now the slightly scary part, we basically break our expensive oil seal. And the service manual says to use silicone grease, which I have, so we may as well use that, but I'm sure oil would be fine too. Just on these edges, where it's going to get scraped across the crankshaft. And same on the crankshaft. So obviously the recess faces this way. You have to squeeze this, breaking it, basically, over the crankshaft. And you only want to do that once. And now we need to push the spring into the seal, and we want this connection in the spring to be halfway between the split and the hinge. Where are we? There's the split. So 90 degrees, approximately. And there we go. So the split needs to be vertical in the engine, so the opposite of where it is now, because obviously we're upside down. But first, I want to get as much of the silicone grease off here as possible. We're going to use compound on the outside of the seal, so you want the outside to be as clean as possible. But you can't just go nuts with brake clean because you want to leave lubrication on the inside lip of the seal. I think that's the hinge, so the split should be at the bottom, or the top when it's installed. Okay. And I'm going to use Hylomar. So what you've seen me use before is number 2 Permatex. In fact, let me just quickly talk about these sealants. So you've got your 3 Permatexes, 1, 2, and 3, which is also called aviation compound. And other brands like Loctite use the same numbering system. Number 1 is hard setting, so if you peel the piece off, you could crack it. Number 2 is non-hardening. That's relative, it gets pretty hard, but not crispy like a potato chip. Now, 99% of the time you use number 2. Number 1 is what you use when you run out of 2, pretty much. Number 3 is the same as number 2, just in a more runny format, so you can brush it on. And these compounds are basically glue. They stick stuff together, and when you break parts apart, you have to scrape off the residue with a razor blade or something like that. They work great. Buy yourself a tube of number 2, and you're good to go. But just recently, I noticed that Hylomar is now being sold here in New Zealand. You can buy it in Repco, and I much prefer Hylomar. It doesn't set, it stays soft, it doesn't glue stuff together completely, although it is sticky, and it doesn't tear like silicone. So this is the compound we'll be using on this engine, and probably what I'll be using for everything from now on. Note that none of these are silicone. Listen, stop, not silicone. Stop it. That's a different product for different use cases. Stop putting it on everything. You stop it. Okay. Now, one thing that is annoying is you'll probably have to take the engine off its stand to do this. I've just put it on my long-suffering stool. I'm pretty sure this weighs less than some people, so that should be fine. But I haven't taken the straps off just in case. I'm going to skip through this because let's just say we do it twice. But first of all, you need to put compound in the oil seal recess. Alright, I know this angle is a little awkward, but we need to slide that plate up in here on the inside of the oil seal. The slots into 2 dowels, so we have to kind of get it over the dowels without mangling anything. Okay, there we go, we're on. Now, can you see down in there how the oil seal is in that recess? Not properly yet, we're going to push it in now, but that's how that goes together. So now I just reach in behind with a screwdriver and make sure that seal is pushed all the way into the recess. And now install all of the bolts. And these top ones, as per the manual, finger tight only at this stage. And the next part is easy peasy. We just got to put this onto there. And again, these end ones, we're not tightening those up yet. Okay, now that, so far, has been the easy part. Now we've got to fit the dastardly T-seals. So this part's pretty easy. We just put them in. Spin it around. Okay, now the hard part. You can see here that these seals stick out from the bearing cap. And the bearing cap is already a sliding fit in here. So the challenge is that we have to slide this into here without destroying the seals. And to increase your chances of success, I suggest you make yourself a couple of guide blocks. They don't have to be anything fancy, not that these are fancy, but really anything that will help this seal slide past the sharp edge on the block without destroying it. Anything you can find. Probably something like this would be better, but at the time I had 2 bits of steel. And yes, I know, I think maybe the Haynes manual, or certainly people online, say you can cut up a beer can and use it as kind of a guide, or an old feeler gauge. So this would go here to sort of let the seal slide past the edge, and then you pull this out. Let me give you some advice. Don't even think about it. Make some guide blocks. If you try the beer can or feeler gauge method, you'll tear your seals. And you're going to make guide blocks either way. Do it the first time or the second time after you've pulled your engine back out and torn it all apart to replace the rear main seal, again, because you didn't take my advice the first time. Okay? And you won't be able to see this very well, but I've put these in so that the bottom edge
is just overhanging the block, so that when our seals go in, they're not going to catch on the sharp edge of the block. And this is ground back on a slight taper. The idea is that this top edge is wide enough for the seals to go in easy, and the blocks just sort of guide it past that corner. I'm just going to use a little bit of silicone spray. I don't think you want to be using anything thick here, but you need some kind of lubrication. Put our compound where the oil seal sits. I'm going to put a little dab of this just on the very end of the T-seal, where it butts up against the back of here. And I'm going to smear a tiny bit of that on this mating surface, because this half of this big rubber circle butts into the other half, and they seal against each other. And now, say a prayer to the Land Rover war gods, because we're about to go into battle. Now we don't tighten this all the way. We have to leave 0.8 millimeters or 30th thou gap approximately underneath the bearing cap. You're basically not all the way down. And now get that oil seal all the way in. Which it sort of clips in. And then tighten these all the way. We still have quite a big lip on there, so we're not down yet. I don't really like that. That feels tight, you know. Not 85 foot-pound like it will be, but I don't see us pulling that down that much. Okay, I think we've got a bit of an issue here. And these bolts, they're not tightened to 85 foot-pound, but, you know, I gave them a little bit. And I think this should be fully down by now. So possibly the bottom of the T-seal is squeezing underneath this a little bit. The only way we're going to find out is by taking this out, which will probably destroy the T-seals. And there's another issue. I'm not sure that these two half circles are squeezing together very much right here. I think there's a gap. And I'm not talking about the gap up here. That's like 2 or 3 thou. I think there could be like 0.5 millimeter gap going on down here.
This is why the rear main seal is a difficult job. Just following the instructions doesn't mean success. You need to be aware of anything that doesn't seem right and fix it as you go. In this case, one of the T-seals got a little pinched under the bearing cap, which was preventing the bearing cap from fully seating, which is not good.
Oh, yep. Okay, there we go. Yep, there we go, right there. You can see we were pinching the edge of the seal under here. Now, in terms of this sealing, I think we were fine. I think it's been squashed right through here, and this outside bit must just be a little higher.
So these original half-circle seals, they should mate perfectly together. They've been squashed together for 50 years. And with a little bit of compound, I think they would have been fine. But I decided to order new ones. The issue here is that you can't get good quality new ones, just cheap and nasty aftermarket. so we'll have to see what they're like when they get here. Maybe we'll go back to the old ones, but I think I would prefer to use new ones.
Okay, I've just ordered new retainer plate, half circle things, so they're going to be here tomorrow, which for you is now. We have new parts. I had to buy the kit that includes the oil seal as well, but that's okay. This is the brick part one, so not very expensive. Now, the service manual specifically says not to clean these with brake cleaner, and I assume in the 50 years since that was written, plastic technology has improved, so we probably can. But I won't. We'll use alcohol instead. What I'm going to do is just quickly dry fit the new one onto here so we can see where the edge sits. Oh yeah, I can already see. So yeah, straight away, this is sticking up at least 0.5 millimeter. And that means that when the two halves come together, they're going to squish into each other.
Just a quick note on these T-seals. All 3 sets here are good quality seals. These are the rubber ones we just put in and took back out, and they're fine. We're still going to use these ones. The cork seals on either side are both good quality seals. I'm going to use the rubber version just because cork seems a little old-fashioned, but if I didn't have good quality rubber ones, I'd use either of these cork seals. I'm sure they're fine. And the cork might be less prone to pinching as well. For comparison, this is a cheap aftermarket cork seal. You can see it looks like a floor tile. And these are cheap aftermarket rubber ones. You can see they're not very well finished. These probably work okay, but order better quality ones. They're only a few dollars each.
So now I need to figure out something to prevent these from pinching underneath this edge. And what I'm going to do is just run a razor blade along there and put a small chamfer on the corner. And yes, once this squashes down, we might end up with oil tracking through there. But I don't think that's an issue because this is all open to oil anyway. This is oil when the engine's running. Oil can seep in here. Same with this. Oil in here. So the T-seal's job is to stop oil getting to this part here, which is exposed to the outside.
And cut the same chamfer on the other T-seal as well. And look, we'll wait and see if this causes a leak when we run the motor. But I think it'll be fine. Just a quick note here, because I know people are going to mention it. What about filling this with sealant? The technique is to install the bearing cap without seals, and then squeeze sealant in here and fill up the T. And there is, at least apparently, I haven't personally seen it, a technical bulletin issued by Land Rover suggesting this method. However, the later engines, which that technical bulletin would have been referring to, like the 200 and 300 TDI, are a little different. The two ends of the top of the T are open at the time you would be doing this, so you can see the sealant being forced right through. There are no dead ends. On these 2 1/4 litre engines, the short end of the T is covered by the half circle retainer plate, and you have to install it in that order. So you have no way of being sure that sealant is getting right into this corner, and that corner is the most critical part of the seal. So up to you if you want to try that, but I would personally stick to the traditional T-seals on these earlier motors.
One thing I did notice on these brick part retainer plates is that the rubber is not very tidy in this oil seal recess. Like there's a blob of it in here basically. So I'm just going to clean that out with a razor blade, because otherwise this would be squashing our oil seal, which you probably don't want. Now, once again, Hylomar into the oil seal recess. And I did test fit this, and the seal is considerably looser in this retaining plate than the original ones. I don't think that's a problem in any way, but we need our sealant. And the other thing with these brick part ones, look at this here. Look how small this edge is. There's almost nothing there, less than 1 millimeter. And if oil gets through there, it's going to go out past the heads of the screws. So we're going to have to do something about that. And this is typical of these cheaper pattern parts. If you look at the original ones, these screw holes are also unnecessarily large. I have no idea why they're this big for 1/4 inch screws. But if you flip this over, on the sealing side, they're a lot smaller. And the reason I say this is typical of cheaper parts is because somebody copies this and doesn't think about it. And then you get a tiny little slither of gasket on this side. Anyway, we'll figure something out for that.
I am going to use a little bit of compound on these. If they were better made, I probably wouldn't.
I want to keep this really thin because we don't want a whole lot of squeeze out into the engine. And we'll just put a little extra across these thin edges. And just make sure the oil seal is in the correct position, which it is now with the split on the bottom, or the top. And here we go. Perfect. Okay. Now I'll put in all of these screws. And I have cleaned out these threads again because I've decided that I'm going to put a dab of Loctite on these. I'm going to do that after they've had a chance to squeeze the retainer plate for a while. And it's been a few minutes by now, so I'm going to take these 3 main screws out and put a dab of Loctite on them. And you can see that that's pretty loose now, much looser than it was when I just tightened it.
Just to be clear what's going on here, I want to use Loctite on the screws. You don't have to, but I am. They're a 1/4 inch coarse thread, and if one comes loose, it's going to make a lot of noise. And we're tightening these screws against rubber, so the screws won't bottom out. They'll feel mushy right up to the point where you rip the head right off. So be careful, do not over tighten them, just nip them up. And then come back 5 minutes later, once the rubber's had a chance to squeeze, and give them another nip. Maybe do that a couple of times. But the issue is that Loctite will set in that amount of time, at least partially, and then turning the bolts would ruin it. So instead I slowly got everything tight without Loctite, and then just pulled one screw out at a time and added the Loctite that way.
Just give that a few minutes to squeeze out. Then we'll do the same thing, we'll put some Loctite on those. And she goes. And I bought a new, really cheap hammer. My leather one was flaking a little bit too much. We've got about 1 millimeter to go. So now the service manual wants us to clip the oil seal into place. It's going in just fine by itself anyway, but we'll make sure that's pushed in. Which it is. Now wind this all the way down. Okay, so I've got these down to about 50. We need to go to 85. There is a small edge here. This is slightly proud of the block, but I'm talking just enough for my fingernail to pick it up. And I've checked in the back here with a 1 thou feeler gauge, and there's no gap, so I believe this is fully seated correctly. So let's finish this off and get it down to 85. There we go, 85. 85. Okay.
Now the end screws on each retainer plate are still loose. That's following the service manual, presumably so the ends can flex a little bit as the two halves squash together. And these are also the screw holes that only had a slither of rubber between them and an oil leak.
So I'm going to do something to seal this screw from the outside, so if any oil does leak into that screw hole, it's not going to leak outside of the motor. So what I'm going to do is add a flat washer. These are stainless steel, that just happens to be what I had. And I'm just going to put some compound underneath them. So we'll smear a bunch of this around here. Now I accept that this is a little Mickey Mouse, but sometimes you have to do things like this when you're using aftermarket parts. And of course a dab of Loctite, just like the other ones. Now the final job we have to do on the rear main seal is to cut off these little dingus dags. Now Land Rover want us to cut these off so they are about 0.8 millimeters protruding from the bearing cap, which is the thickness of this washer. Exactly, I measured it.
Now, as you can see, the rubber seals are sticking up maybe 12 millimeters, something like that, because they're being squeezed. Ideally, leave them overnight before you cut them short in case they retract slightly. But if your seals are sticking up significantly more than this, or if one is higher than the other, you've torn a seal. Bad luck, try again.
There we go. Done. Let's hope it doesn't leak.
And now finally, we can go back and finish torquing the other bearing caps down to 85 foot-pound.
Done.
And that's it, crankshaft installed. See you back here for the pistons.